So I started going live and it cut out. So we're going to try again. And so tonight is all about your inner voice, the things that you say to yourself, how you talk to yourself, how you deal with yourself. And the reason why the inner voice is something that was of particular interest to me is because it, in my view, determines the quality of your life. How you talk to yourself, how you deal with yourself, how you reprimand yourself, say if you've failed at something or you've done something wrong. If that voice, if your inner voice is particularly harsh, if you're particularly brutal with yourself, then this is going to be particularly unhelpful, and ultimately you're going to be your own worst enemy. So tonight I'm taking any questions that you may have, any quandaries, any queries about your inner voice, about what you might be able to do to assist yourself with that, what you might be able to do if that is too harsh. And as ever, I appreciate thumbs up, I appreciate likes, because, I mean, it's weird because I was thinking about this today. When I drive, I could do videos driving, but I guess there's no expectation that anyone is out there. Whereas with this, it's like people are there, you know, or maybe they're not. So likes and thumbs up would be particularly helpful. And like I said, like the reason why I'm so passionate about our inner voices is because I believe our inner voices determine the quality of our lives. And if you're someone who wants more out of life, if you want to move up and beyond your situation, if you feel that you have a potential in you that you want to bring to life, then I believe is fundamental to your well-being, it's fundamental to your success, that you build a relationship with your inner self, because how you talk to yourself, the things you say to yourself are incredibly important. Because if you are trying to level up, if you're trying to move away from certain situations, getting a grip on your inner dialogue is particularly helpful. And whenever I'm working with anybody, I believe my duty is to build a relationship with that part of them, their inner voice. I want to know if you're harsh, you're brutal with yourself, you're kind, you're compassionate. Because once I get a grip and a handle on your inner voice, I'll know, I'll have some insights into, well, to some degree, it will help me to make predictions. It will also help me to see patterns and themes that keep reoccurring in your life. So if you're someone who's at a point in your life where you're like, you know what, I don't know if this is for me. I don't know if I can continue doing this. Hello, welcome, Poonam. It's fundamental that you get a relationship. If you're trying to level up, trying to move on, trying to get out of certain situations, then I think it's fundamental you get a grip and build a relationship with your inner voice, because our inner voice is also what enables us to make decisions. So we tell ourselves stories about certain things. So if I'm about to do something and maybe I don't necessarily want, so look, if I'm going to buy something, like the other day I bought a dress, I had to justify it to myself. And so in my, welcome Trevor, we love Trevor, in the dialogue, I have a story that I tell myself that makes it justifiable to me. So I'm like, well, I've been working really hard. I haven't got a frock. I need a new frock because what am I going to wear? So those stories are they either enable you to take an action. Yeah. So the story I told myself enabled me to buy the dress because I'd found all these ways of making it sound so delicious that I was worthy. But if, for example, that story was beneficial, but there's going to be times in my life that actually some of the stories I tell myself are not very helpful. And I think we need, easy Trevor, aka Trev, and we need to be careful, and we need to get a grip on the stories that we tell ourselves, because those stories, that inner dialogue, the voices in our head, is really important that you get to understand, because that is the voice that also fuels self-sabotage. So if you're someone who keeps screwing yourself over, if you sell yourself short, if you don't always honor yourself and you find yourself going around in vicious circles, especially as you know, I'm always interested in intimate relationships. because I think in intimate relationships, that's where our stuff shows up the most. And that's why I believe intimate relationships are such a great window into us. So if you're kind of at a point in your life where what you're doing is no longer working, or you've tried to level up, you've tried to move on, but you keep going around in vicious circles, Trevor, feel free to tell a friend, tag a friend if you like, if you think they'd benefit from this conversation. Then my encouragement to you, like I said, is you need to build a relationship with your inner dialogue, because your inner dialogue ultimately holds the key. So I don't know if anybody has got any questions about that, but I am a solid believer that our inner voice is the key that determines the quality of our life. And if you're brutal with yourself, if you find yourself going around in vicious circles, so if you take it back to intimate relationships, because I think that's my strong point, is that if you find yourself slipping, if you find yourself going back into situations where you don't want to be, then you need to check the story that you are saying to yourself. Welcome, Joanne. It's good to have you here, and I am inviting your questions. So I think it's really important that you get a grip of your inner dialogue, because if you don't know, and that translates across all areas. As you know, I have my own business, and like, I trained as a therapist, obviously, but learning to have a relationship with my inner dialogue was particularly beneficial for me having a business, because there would be things that come up and I would be like, oh, well, I can't do that. What happens if I leave my job? All of the negativity would be stored up in my head, and that's one of the reasons why I stayed in my job so long. So Joe, my inner voice is frequently unkind. So so if you have a frequently unkind inner voice, what I think is really important, and I often do this with my clients, and we belly laugh sometimes about what we notice. Once you get over, like, once you build a relationship with me, you're cool. Like, there's always a fear of coming for the first time, and then people come and, oh my God, it's all right. It's not as bad as I thought. But what is really important is, Joanne, if you have that issue, I would encourage you to start to write down the things that you say to yourself. So get a piece of paper or get a notebook, something that you can keep. Start to note down what you say to yourself, because often what can happen is, because it's in our head, it gears up and it has a vengeance to it. And if we never expose it, so when you write it down, you're starting to expose that. And so when it's exposed, you can start to see, bloody hell, Jesus, this is the way I speak about myself. Like, and then you can ask yourself, so once you write them down, write 3 things down. If you keep going, just keep going, just keep writing. Write down the things that you say to yourself, write down what you say. But it's also important, Joanne, to be clear about what are the situations when that unkind voice comes up. Be clear about the situations, because the situations are also helpful. So write down the situations and start to write down what you say, and just keep writing down all the venom, all the horribleness that you say to yourself. And then what I want you to do after that is, then you need to ask, what evidence do I have to support that? Because often this voice is irrational. Often it can be coming from our past, especially if we've had a harsh, critical parent. So we need to get a grip about where the roots of that voice come from. So that exercise, you write down the situation, write down all the venom that you say to yourself. And then once you've got that, on the other side, start to write, what evidence do I have to support that? And start to document it. And I trust that you will find that often it's very difficult to start to find evidence to support that. So it's usually very irrational. I hope that's helpful to you, Joe, and give me a thumbs up. Can I have a heart maybe as well? Let's ask for what we need. Trevor, people and situations often distract you from hearing your inner voice, and your feelings can take over. Okay, so I think in that instance, you're getting drowned out by the noise. And I think one of the things that I'm developing more and more, because it's so busy, fast, is the gift of morning meditation. That's where I get still. And that means that I take back something for myself in that day. So if you're suggesting that people and situations distract you from hearing your inner voice, I'd need a little bit more info about the situation. Is it a high conflict situation? What type of situation is it? So I think we need to be very clear, because usually what happens when we get still, so sometimes, sleep, if we're like continuously busy, sometimes when we go to bed and we get ready to lay down, those things can start to come back to us. And that might be because we're always busy. So when you pause, usually that part of you might speak to you saying, oh, well, you should have done this or you should have done that. And if you feel that your emotions take over, I think what you need to do is also to build a relationship with your body, because the body keeps the score. The body is always a truth teller. So I think you need to create what we call is a stimulus gap. So if you find yourself being emotional, we also know that when we get emotional, if we're not careful, we can be coming from our rational brain can be compromised. And so it may be likely that you say things that you might regret because you're coming from raw emotion. And if that speaks to you, Trevor, if that is like a part of your situation, then my encouragement to you is that you consider how you retreat from those situations, take yourself away, try the okay method. Okay method is something I'm very big on, which is you just say okay and remove yourself from the situation so you can cool yourself down, so you can become anchored. Otherwise, you're just going to be drained and reacting all the time. And when we react, we may not, I know in my older days, I wouldn't be coming from my best place. So what I endeavor to do nowadays is to respond from a considered space. So I hope that's helpful to you, Trevor. Trevor says, my inner voice tells me to behave myself, but my feelings physically make me want to do what I believe is misbehaving. Well, you're being governed by your emotions. And while there is a benefit to being governed by our emotions, sometimes it may mean that we make regrettable decisions. And so you're functioning, I think they would call that kind of from that's like very reactionary. You have to work out how bad it is a problem for you, in terms of whether it is causing you problems in your life. But what I believe is really important for the quality of your life, I think it depends where you're at in your life. So I know things like our inner voice fuels depression. I know that our inner voice fuels anxiety, and that if we don't check that, I know that people are going to their doctors and there isn't often the space to explore that. I'm thinking about Nadia's documentary, Anxiety and Me, that I watched yesterday, I think it was yesterday. And clearly all she's doing is talking about her voice in the video. She talks about her voice, she talks about the monster and the things that the monster says to her. So, as I was watching that, I was like, you see, that is the voice. That is the voice that fuels things like the anxiety and the depression. So it's really important, welcome Jennifer, that we get a grip and build a relationship with that voice. And like I said to Joe, when you said that you can be unkind to yourself, what is particularly helpful is that you start to ask yourself, there's the love, I need the love, thank you. Is that you ask yourself, is this rational? Like, where is this voice coming from? What evidence do I have to support this? And usually there is no evidence. But like I said, if that voice is an internalized voice, usually it may come from childhood, but we've internalized the voice of a hypercritical caregiver. Not always, but likely sometimes there is a link back there. So we have to be mindful of that. Because the more I do this work, I am absolutely convinced that that voice is that we have to build a relationship with it. That's where I'm at in my stages of development, my journey, that I need to build a relationship with that part of me. Because what I've realized over the years is I've built the relationship with my inner voice. And I have a whole load of people in place to help me. as well, my supervisors, my coach, my inner circle, is that the voice is based on fear. Yeah, inner voice that is unhelpful is usually based on fear. And it's usually the voice that thinks, who do you think you are? It's usually the voice that fuels our feelings of inadequacy. And so if you have any questions about that, I mean, I don't want to bore you talking about me. Hey, welcome Marley. But I can talk about myself. It's pretty easy. And I think sometimes because of the nature of what I do, people prefer to hear me talk about me because there's so much stigma with what I do. And obviously this is a public forum, so we have to be mindful. But you could ask on behalf of your friend. So this is not about you, it's on behalf of your friend. But our inner voice, if you may be your own worst enemy, and if you find that you're your own worst enemy, if you keep screwing yourself over, if you keep sabotaging yourself, then we need to have if you're my client, me and you need to have a word about this inner voice. I need to understand this inner voice because this inner voice is a part of the problem. Yeah. And I have a range of ways that we can get to exploit that, get to explore that. We need to lance that. We need to, as I said today, we need to bring that up so we can inspect it. Let's have a look. Let's have a look at that. And so one of the tools that I found helpful is my fear-based voice. I give a name. So I call it Cruella de Vil. So I know when it comes up, this is my fear-based voice. And at certain times that's absolutely okay, because it means that I'm moving into a new dimension. I'm doing something out of my comfort zone. So my fear-based voice will come up. So I've learned to accept that. And it no longer holds me back. But what I know to be true, and people please let me know if you agree, is that it fuels fear. That inner voice fuels fear. And if you're not clear about it, if you're not clear about that, then what will happen is that voice then determines your beliefs. And our beliefs means that how you'll act in correspondence with the fear. Yeah, and it may mean that you start to live a life that is mediocre. You may play small and you may not take risks, because I believe to risk is to grow. Actually, it's by being brave and experiencing and putting myself out there. That's how I've grown. That's how I can get to the point where I'm at today, where I'm going live and taking questions, well, when they come, and seeing where that takes me. Welcome, Mrs. Poodle. So any of your questions with regards to your inner voice, how you might be able to be more kinder to yourself. If anybody out there wants to learn how to be kinder to themselves, do let me know, because being kind to ourselves, we've got to learn to be our best friend. Because so many people who have harsh inner critics wouldn't talk to your friend like that, would you really? Let's have it. You wouldn't talk to your friend like that, but actually, in terms of the way you deal with yourself, you're not too late, Mrs. Poodle. Welcome. In terms of the way you deal with yourself, you believe is acceptable. And what my training as a therapist taught me, that actually, if I wouldn't talk to a client like that, if I wouldn't deal with a client like that in such a harsh way, why would I do it to myself? So my training as a therapist taught me to offer to myself what I would give away to others. And that for me was a real game changer. It's been a real game changer in my life. And been fundamental to where I am today. And God only knows where I'm going to be tomorrow. So, like I said, I'm thanking Trevor and I'm thanking Joanne for their questions. And if you have any question, if there's anything about your inner voice, if you are absolutely brutal with yourself, if you look in the mirror, and I know this for myself, especially when I was larger, I used to look in the mirror and the voice in my head would kick off. It's like you can't shake it. It can be like a heavy cloud that you walk around, this voice of just hyper self-criticism, always putting yourself down, hating yourself. And I think, as you know, I'm very passionate about intimate relationships and my battles with them. I think that self-hate fueled and underpinned my desire to my capacity to accept nonsense in my intimate relationships. Because at the end of the day, if I was always putting myself down, and then Mr. Man came along and, slowly started to erode at my confidence. Well, to be honest, it was already eroded at. He would just, take advantage of that for his own gain. So I think it makes sense that when you are brutal with yourself, you're harsh to yourself, your confidence will be impacted, and it then shapes what we're also prepared to tolerate from others. And I think that's one of the reasons why I'm very passionate about exploring your inner voice, because I need to hear how you deal with you. Because if you deal with yourself in a brutal way, you'll soon know. Because I'll tell you about it. I'll be like, I don't like how you're talking about yourself today. I don't appreciate that. We need to explore that. Jenissa, what ways to recommend to silence negative self-mind chat? I think, I don't know, I'm not a big fan of silencing things. I'm a big fan of exposing things. Because if you try to, yes, thumbs up all the way, I think silencing negative self-talk would be about kind of suppression and repression. And what you resist persists. So I'm more about, let's explore that. Let's lance that out. That's why I said to Joanne at the top, you need to write down what the things you say to yourself. Write down 3 things. And if the pen keeps going, just keep going. And if you want to send it to me, send it to me. Yeah, I'll find time to have a look at that. But you need to write down the negative things that you say to yourself. There's a reason why you say what you say. If you're my client, I'll be trying to help you to understand where that voice comes from, because we can't have that in your head. That voice is going to limit your greatness. It's going to limit your potential. And that same voice is the voice that will fuel anxiety and depression. It's the same voice that will keep you stuck in situations that ain't working for you. It's the same voice that will keep you playing small. And you've got great things that you want to retrieve. You want to live your best life, right? So it's fundamental that we get to build a relationship with that. It's not about silencing the voice. It's about building a relationship with the voice. And that's what a lot of them coaches and stuff out there are telling people to do, silence voices. That ain't going to help, because it's like a girdle. When you suppress it here, it's going to bulge out somewhere else and catch you off guard. We've got to build a relationship with it. And that's the difference. Build a relationship with the voice, get to understand it, know where it comes from, know the situations when it comes up, because then you can predict it. And then you know, oh, that's why it's there. It's there to actually, often, sometimes it's there to protect us, to keep us safe, because it doesn't want us to step outside the comfort zone. My daughter made me watch the film The Croods, or The Cruds in cartoon. And that was about a cartoon where a father continuously kept the children safe in the cave. And actually, that became a problem because it was about going out to explore. So thank you. Your next question, Jenissa, what ways would you suggest to calm and silence the negative self-talk in my mind? Like I said, sister, I think it's about being able to express the voice. We need to get it out of you. We don't need distortion, distraction, and silencing techniques. That ain't no good. That voice is there for a reason. We need to understand and overstand the voice. We need to understand why it's there, what it's saying to you, and where it came from. Usually, like I said, usually it usually comes from a good place. And there may have been a time in your life when that voice was there to protect you. So when I think of that, I think of a child who's exposed to a hypercritical parent, and then the voice develops so that if the parent chastises you, what happens is we then develop the inner voice so that we chastise ourselves, so we don't get the humiliation from the parent. I'm not suggesting that's your situation. I'm sure my rationale here. And so what happens is that voice was very helpful for us in our formative years. However, it's past its sell-by date now, and we don't need that kind of brutality. And so what I would help you to do, if we're working together, is to help you to understand the voice, where it comes from, why it's there, how it helped you, it was helpful at a certain stage in your life, and why now it's no longer helpful. So we own it, we embrace it, we bring it in, we make it a friend, we give it a name as well. Giving it a name is always helpful, yeah? But at the same time, Jenissa, if you have that voice, you also need to be this is why I'm not a fan of, we don't silence no voice, yeah? We build a relationship with your compassionate inner friend. You need a compassionate side. You need to develop an inner compassionate voice. It's the same voice that you'll probably be offering love and kindness to everybody else. Yes, Queen, give me them thumbs up. Thank you. You need to develop a compassionate voice. And if your negative voice is on the rampage, it probably suggests that you don't have a compassionate side. So you've got one muscle that's very strong, but the compassionate side is very weak. And my encouragement is that you have to develop compassion for yourself. Self-compassion is the way. The way that you offer self-compassion to all your friends with all their men dramas. For example, anyhow, okay, Mrs. Poodle, oh, Keeley, I'm interested in the suppressed voice of expression, feeling that what comes out may hurt others, and by keeping it in, it hurts the self. All this suppressed voice can cause a lot of leakage to others in the firing line. Any recommendations on being true to self whilst being true to others? Interesting. I think what is first important is that you do you. We don't want to be doing no inner work and then all of a sudden we're going to go and tell mum, dad, auntie, uncle, and sister about what we've noticed about them or how they actually have made us feel bad in the past. I think in the first instance, it's about you doing the work on your own. And so you build a relationship with that part of yourself. So when you start to identify, oh my gosh, this voice comes from here, this voice comes from these situations, or even my education system, then you're getting woke. Yeah. So you're going from not being aware to being aware. And then once you get aware, you're going to start to notice. The next part would be to start to notice people in your circle who fuel your feelings of inadequacy. Yeah. Who fuels that? And sometimes they'll fuel that because actually we've done that. When I used to speak ill of myself and I used to speak poorly about myself, it was only natural that people picked up on that. And then they would call me names like, well, you're not that bright, you're not that smart, are you, King? But actually, I'd given that away to them. So then you're going to have to start to notice, you're going to notice that. And then, well, I think my encouragement with you, depending on how deep this goes in terms of the inner voice and how brutal you are with yourself, where you ascertain where that voice has come from, you may need to start to think about whether you get professional help around that. Because if we want to start to challenge parents and so on and so forth, that's the depth work. That's really the depth work. But thank you for that, Pam Poodle. Jennifer, thank you. Good advice. I'm glad to hear it. Yes, I am doing that. What are you doing? People start disappearing once you become true to self. Wise words keep. Yes, well, we know that the inner circle has to shrink. And let's be honest, I would much rather a potent inner circle with good, solid folks that have my back 110% than a tribe of people around me that actually don't have my best interests at heart. That can be far more perplexing. And let's be honest, the truth of the matter is this is a very individual walk. It's a unique walk. My experience is that this experience has taken me to my purpose. So my disastrous relationship, well, I can't even call it disastrous because it's actually very blessed. I have no hatred or ill feeling about that relationship. I think at that point in my life, I don't think I was able to have experienced healthy, wholesome love, and that's been a journey I've been working on over the years. So, and I know that I'm in that place now because I know I can reject nonsense. And that's the key. When you start rejecting the nonsense, ladies, that's when you know you've reached, what used to pull you don't pull you no more. You can see the challenge, you can see the temptation, and you let it glide by. I'm so great at letting it glide by. And even if I caught in the web, I throw down two good questions, and then we soon see that they retreat. But I believe this is a journey that I've had to walk alone with confidence and trusted souls on the journey. And what it's led to for me personally is my purpose, and it's led to a mission to help others to love and heal themselves. So yes, it is a part of the journey. And I think, if just Jennifer, if you're kind of like, let's work on silencing the voice first. And let's not work on silencing the voice. Let's work on exposing the voice first. And I think then you'll get to once you start to get woke about that. And as I said before, like in my workshop, Feel Loved, inner voice is an important feature of the workshop, because when we're looking for love, we need to be very clear with ourselves what we are saying to ourselves. Because man and man out there have got some lovely stories. and then can promise some big dreams. And if you buy purely into that and you don't pay attention to what's going on in you, and you don't pay attention to your intuition, the next thing you know, you could be holding on for a dream that doesn't come to fruition. So we need to be very mindful when we're looking for love, about our inner voice. And that is why I put inner voice in a section, a module on our inner voice in my program, because I know how important it is to have a relationship with that part of ourselves. So yeah, people will disappear, but what you're going to do is you're going to learn the wheat from the chaff, who was there for you and who ate. And actually, it's better to have few quality than to have, enough. It's a bit like, shopping in Primark. You can have loads of clothes, loads and loads and loads of clothes, or you can have a few select garments of quality and grade. No bubbles when you wash them. It's your choice. Janissa, I am being more loving and caring to myself. Janissa, I hear that. And if I was working with you, like, my encouragement would be to you, like, what does that specifically mean? Like, I often hear people saying these things, oh, being more kind to yourself. Give me a specific example of how you're being kind to yourself. Examples are really important, because that's when you see it in action. Yeah, it's really important to see that in action, how that looks live. Like, what does that look like? Pampuda, but it feels so sad when people leave because they leave with no voice. Well, I want to say my truth response there is, such is life. That's life. Sometimes, I remember I met a gentleman, great guy, we got on, and then never heard from him again. For months that left me wondering, why did he not? Was it me? Did I do this? You know what? It's life. Sometimes, they still can't work out how the Big Bang Theory. So, in life, you don't always get happy endings, and people will bounce on you or ghost you. And actually, learning to deal with rejection is important for the quality of our lives. Whilst rejection isn't ideal, I think it's good to build a backbone for that, because it's inevitable in life. It's inevitable wherever you go, that you're not for everybody. So I think it's important we get to build our muscle on that. It's not ideal, but that's the situation. And sometimes you won't get an opportunity to say what you need to say, and you need to learn to sit with that. Some counseling practices talk about writing a letter to people, and doesn't mean you send it. The process of writing a letter may mean that you can, like, get it out of you, relieve what was inside. So as I said before, like, I'm a massive fan of, like, you gotta get it out of you. You don't silence stuff, because silent stuff just becomes muted and muffed, and then it takes on a vengeance and comes out somewhere else. We need to build a relationship with that. So yeah, people do leave and we don't get to say goodbye. The self-work is being done, and most definitely. So Pampuda was talking about, when you do the work, is when the work's being done on ourselves, that people around you need to leave. Yeah, and I think Jessica once said to me something about reasons and seasons. People come into our life for a reason, a season, or a lifetime. And some people are only in it for a season, and then they're gone. And I think we have a choice, and I'm a massive advocate of choice, because I believe we create our reality. I believe it's not about what life does to us. It's about how we respond and react to life. I think that is fundamentally the key, how we respond and react to what life presents to us. So why am I saying that? I can't remember what confirms itself as being done. Yeah. So, that, and for me, that is always why our inner voice is fundamental. It's fundamental we get a relationship with that. And at times, like as Trevor said, I think it's fundamental that we get very still. Because if we're constantly reacting and we're driven by emotion. So today I said something to somebody who was selling food, and he was deeply offended, and he reacted. Yeah, he just kept cursing and cursing and cursing and cursing and cursing and cursing. Clearly what I said had triggered him off. And as I felt slightly embarrassed that I'd upset him so much. But then I realized this isn't about me. The way this man is reacting is coming from somewhere else, and I'm not taking any responsibility for that. That is his own stuff. And so you get clear. It's a process, it's a walk, it's a journey. but it's definitely about you getting clear. And for anything that you want to do in your life, your inner voice will determine the quality of your life, because I believe and I understand that our inner voice is often also very fear-based. It's a very fear-based voice. And so if your life is purely governed by that, it will make sense that you play small and you play safe. So that documentary, the BBC documentary, Anxiety and Me, with Nadia Hussain, who won the British Bake Off, she just makes it clear, very clear about the monster. She calls it the monster and the things that the monster says to her. And again, the thing that keeps coming up, she kept saying again and again, is that thing about not being good enough, which is why not feeling good enough also features in my program, because not feeling good enough, not accepting ourselves, not embracing ourselves as we are, is a factor that keeps us playing small and continuously like going round in vicious cycles, and that impacts on all aspects of our life, from our career, our relationships. So my encouragement as a helping professional, as someone who's worked in prisons to private practice, a whole range, I see it time and time again in a whole range of different scenarios. Pam Poodle says, does it trigger how we respond to rejection too, though? Because I'm not going to lie, it feels like what feels like rejection, Pam Poodle? What feels like rejection when people, like I said, the thing about rejection, rejection is not an experience I delight in. It's not like I'm like skippity, let's go and get rejected. But actually, it's a part of life. Being rejected is a part of life. And I think it's important that we build a relationship with ourselves about rejection, because sometimes it's not our stuff. And sometimes people ain't going to be truthful with you either. They will bounce on you. They will ghost you. They won't give you the explanation, and people won't always be truthful. But for me, what's always been beneficial is to have a relationship with my intuition. Yeah. Every time I deny my intuition or I stray from it, problems arise. And then I remind myself, oh, yeah, I kind of knew that already. So I think inner voice, another aspect of our inner voice is also our inner wisdom. And I think we don't always have a relationship with that part of ourselves. And if I followed my inner wisdom, wisdom, to function from a place of inner wisdom means that you start to learn, I'm not even going to go down that road. I can see the problem already, so I'm just going to stay here and I'm going to keep it safe. That's the beauty of developing a relationship with your inner wisdom. And often that part of us is not being utilized. And I'm a massive advocate. And I help people to access their inner wisdom. And let's be honest, why I'm able to do what I do, and I've been able to do what I do, and I continue to do what I do, is because I'm good at what I do. I'm very good at what I do. And I think what one of my edges is I've walked it. Like, I've walked it. And if you know my story, you know I've walked it. So this is not book to me. Yeah. So I understand how important it is to have a relationship with your inner voice, because I know when we don't have a relationship with our inner voice, I know what fear does to us. How do I know what fear does to us? Because I know what fear did to me. And I know where fear took me in my darkest hour. And so I'm very much passionate about helping people to build the relationship with your inner voice. Because let's face it, I can work in private practice, I can work with individuals, but actually what I'm passionate about, and I see time and time and time again, is that people are hurting, and actually they're not always getting access to the help or speaking to the right professionals to really understand. It's a bit like my friend Jessica saying about silencing the voices. You can't silence the voice. You try and mute the voice will get more vehement. It's about embracing the voice. It's very key. Learn to build a relationship with the voice so that you can understand and overstand where it's come from and why it's there. Then you can once you get it, once you understand it, you now start to develop self-awareness. That's what I call being woke. Now we're starting to wake up, and then we can start to make conscious choices. So we're not making choices based on fear. We're making choices based on fear. We're playing small. Caroline O'Leary, welcome, Joanna Taverner. Love that about you. What do you love about me, Carol? Carol's one of my fans. Thank you, Carol. Caroline, I'm calling you Carol. So yeah, so how long have I spoken for? How long? 40 minutes. Bloody hell, you're a talker. If anybody's got any other questions, I really look forward to them. I know that this is a public forum, and I know that we're conditioned to feel embarrassed or ashamed about. Yeah, I don't know. I think I'm really struggling with that still, but I have to, I get it. I've been in the industry long enough, but the stigma is really unhelpful. And like I said to people, that's what I think, that whole mental health thing is really unhelpful. The label mental health is unhelpful. I mean, what's the first thing you think of when you hear the word mental? Exactly. So for me, it's always about, and I'm going to always preach this. I don't even care if people get bored. It's always about becoming your greatest self. Anxiety, depression, they're just signs that you're out of sync. You're out of sync with your greatness. You're out of sync with your authenticity. And I will help you to reconnect with that so you can make choices. So you become woke, so you understand, oh my God, that's why I do that. So today, if I think about today I was with my coach in central London. We're working on my vision to help more people, to make my services more accessible. And I'm in a room with lots of posh women. There's a point in my life where before I would have felt really inadequate about that, like, oh my God, that, when you level up, new circles just become normal to you. But if I would have listened to my fear-based voice, would have kept me playing small just there. Yeah. But I am really fortunate that I ensure I have the right people around me to keep pushing. And that's why I'm really preaching to you the importance of getting to know your inner voice. And if there's anything I've said here that you're not too sure about, or you don't want to post because you feel inadequate or you shouldn't, just inbox me and I'll gladly do a video on it. I could do a video going home tonight. I could talk about it easy peasy all day. Yeah. But this is why, like I said to you before, that, hey Sabrina, that the inner voice is a massive factor that fuels anxiety and depression. And I know a lot of people are not getting the help that they need and that they deserve, which is why I am making sure that I do videos about it, and I'm making sure that I put that into my Feel Loved program. So it's now 40 minutes and I'm going to be going. So I thank you. If there's any other questions, feel free to inbox me. And I want to thank everybody who's been here tonight. It's 40 minutes. Your girl's thirsty. So I'm going to go. Welcome, Sabrina. No one is talking anymore. People simply want to talk. But WhatsApp is taken over. Well, Mrs. Poodle, we know that we are only at the beginning of seeing the cataclysmic issues that social media is doing to humanity. I did, and I'll put a link here, I've done some videos called WhatsApp Anxiety, because people are continuously like on WhatsApp, blue ticks, feeling anxious. Is that in the profile pic? It's online, you didn't answer. We know that that is also fueling people's distress. So I'll put a link below for my WhatsApp anxiety videos to help you to look after yourself, because we have to take responsibility for ourselves, because these big companies are designing apps that absolutely play on a human emotion, and they're deliberately done to keep you online. So self-care is a must, and only we can look after ourselves. I want to thank you for the opportunity to speak with you tonight, and hopefully you can join me next week, where I'll be looking at boundaries and why they are key. They're key to your life, because you have to let people know you can't deal with me like that. If you don't let them know, they'll take advantage of you. So do take care. Feel free to share this video with a friend, and I appreciate you guys turning up. Thank you. Take care of you, because if you don't, who will?